Welcome to Dinar Shift. Today, we're exploring a narrative that has persisted for years, a story that intertwines the aftermath of a major global conflict with complex financial operations conducted in the shadows. This account suggests that in the turbulent period following the 2003 invasion of Iraq, an opportunity was identified by certain groups to acquire and store the nation's currency on an unprecedented scale. While global attention was riveted on the geopolitical shifts and the immense task of rebuilding a nation, a different kind of activity was allegedly taking place behind the scenes. This operation, as the story goes, wasn't about immediate gain but was rooted in a long-term strategy centered on the future economic potential of a country rich in natural resources. It's a narrative that delves into the very nature of currency valuation and the strategic financial plays that can occur during times of profound international instability. The central premise of this story revolves around the movement of trillions of Iraqi dinars from their country of origin to secure locations within the United States. This wasn't a haphazard collection, but is described as a systematic effort to accumulate vast quantities of the currency. In the immediate aftermath of the collapse of Saddam Hussein's government, the Iraqi dinar's value was incredibly low, and its future was uncertain. However, the fundamental principles of currency speculation suggest that what is perceived as nearly worthless today can hold immense potential for tomorrow. The narrative posits that certain entities, potentially with deep insight into geopolitical and economic forecasting, recognize this possibility. They understood that if Iraq could achieve a measure of stability and harness its vast oil wealth, its currency could one day experience a significant revaluation, turning a low-cost acquisition into a monumental financial windfall. Understanding the logic behind such a massive undertaking requires a grasp of how currency markets function, particularly in post-conflict economies. When a nation's government is overthrown, its currency often plummets in value, but it doesn't simply disappear. This old currency can become a speculative asset. The core idea is to buy low and hold, sometimes for years or even decades, in anticipation of a future recovery. For Iraq, a nation possessing some of the world's largest proven oil reserves, the potential for an economic comeback was always a tangible possibility. This narrative suggests that sophisticated planners, recognizing this long-term potential, initiated a program to stockpile dinars. It was a strategic calculation based on the belief that Iraq's economic fundamentals would eventually drive a recovery, and with it, a substantial appreciation of its national currency. The story becomes even more intricate when it identifies the alleged participants in this large-scale operation. It wasn't just private investors or currency speculators who were supposedly involved. The narrative points towards the potential participation of various United States government agencies, including organizations like the Central Intelligence Agency and the Department of the Treasury. Furthermore, it suggests that private contractors, operating in close coordination with the Pentagon, may have played a significant role in the logistics and execution of acquiring and transporting the currency. If these claims hold any weight, it would frame the operation not as a rogue endeavor, but as a highly structured, state-level strategic initiative. The involvement of such high-level entities would imply a deliberate, long-term financial strategy running parallel to the public-facing mission of rebuilding and stabilizing Iraq. This alleged operation was, by its very nature, one that demanded the utmost secrecy and organizational prowess. Moving and storing trillions of individual banknotes is a logistical challenge of immense proportions. The narrative describes a highly organized system, complete with established protocols, secure channels, and detailed documentation, all designed to manage these vast currency holdings discreetly. The goal was twofoldly: to secure the physical assets and to keep their existence entirely off the public record. This points to a long-term vision where the currency would be held until macroeconomic conditions in Iraq shifted favorably. Such a strategy suggests a belief that those holding the dinars were in a unique position to anticipate and capitalize on the future trajectory of Iraq's political and economic landscape, a perspective potentially afforded by direct involvement in the nation's reconstruction. At the heart of this narrative lies the assertion that the stockpiled dinars were not held in ordinary bank vaults, but in specialized, high-security storage facilities scattered across the United States. Specific states, including Nevada, Texas, and Virginia, are often mentioned as possible locations for these clandestine reserves. The scale described is staggering, with individual facilities rumored to hold anywhere from 500 billion to as much as 2 trillion dinars each. To provide some context for these figures, there were periods when the total amount of dinars allegedly held in these US2 base stockpiles may have rivaled or even surpassed the amount of physical currency actively circulating within Iraq itself. This detail underscores the sheer magnitude of the purported operation and the level of resources that would have been required to maintain it over 2 decades. The management of these facilities, as the story goes, was conducted with a level of security befitting a top-secret government program. Access was strictly limited, with operations run by a small cadre of vetted personnel. The protocols were reportedly so stringent that most employees involved would have had a very narrow understanding of their specific role, without any knowledge of the overall scope or purpose of the operation. This method, known as compartmentalization, is a classic technique used in intelligence and military operations to ensure that a potential leak from one area cannot compromise the entire project. Each person holds only one piece of the puzzle, making it nearly impossible for any single individual to grasp the full picture, thereby safeguarding the operation's secrecy for an extended period. A particularly fascinating element of this narrative is the mention of an internal program allegedly known as the DR protocol. This wasn't just a simple inventory system. It is described as a sophisticated analytical tool designed to track and model the economic and political future of Iraq. The protocol reportedly monitored a wide array of key indicators, such as daily oil production figures, the stability of the new Iraqi government, international investment flows, and other critical macroeconomic data. In essence, it functioned as a predictive model, continuously assessing the factors that could lead to an appreciation in the dinar's value. This suggests that the operation was not a passive holding strategy but an active, data-driven endeavor to determine the optimal moment for a potential financial return. The existence of such a protocol, if true, would imply that the entities behind this operation were effectively running their own internal forecasting system, using privileged information and advanced analytics to place a long-term bet on the future of an entire nation's economy. This goes far beyond the typical activities of private currency investors. It suggests a confluence of intelligence gathering, economic analysis, and strategic financial planning, all focused on a single outcome capitalizing on the potential revaluation of the Iraqi dinar. The DR protocol, as described, would have provided the framework for understanding exactly how and why such massive currency reserves could be maintained in secret for over 20 years, with a clear, calculated strategy guiding the entire process. For 2 decades, this entire alleged operation remained almost completely hidden from public view. The primary mechanism for maintaining this secrecy was the aforementioned strategy of compartmentalization. By breaking the operation down into countless isolated tasks, the full scope remained known to only a very small, select group of individuals at the highest levels. Personnel involved in logistics, security, or data analysis would have performed their duties without comprehending how their work fit into the larger financial objective. This was further reinforced by strict, non-disclosure agreements and the use of classified designations, which legally prevented anyone involved from speaking about their activities. This layered approach to security proved to be exceptionally effective, creating a wall of silence that held for many years. However, narratives of this nature often find their way into the public domain over time, as circumstances change and individuals, once bound by secrecy, decide to come forward. The story suggests that this is precisely what has begun to happen in recent years. The emergence of potential whistleblowers, reportedly former government employees or contractors with direct or indirect knowledge of these programs, has started to bring new information to light. These individuals are said to be providing fragmented but corroborating pieces of evidence, including documents, internal communications, and personal testimonies that lend credence to the long-held rumors. It is through these slow, incremental disclosures that a more detailed, albeit still incomplete, picture of these alleged currency operations is beginning to form. The evidence that has reportedly surfaced is varied and compelling, pointing towards a coordinated and officially sanctioned endeavor. This isn't just anecdotal storytelling. The claims are said to be supported by tangible records. Among the alleged proofs are bank transfer receipts documenting large-scale currency transactions, receipts from secure storage facilities detailing the deposit of massive quantities of foreign banknotes, and internal memos that outline the structure and objectives of the programs. While no single document reveals the entire story, together they create a mosaic that suggests a far more extensive and organized operation than previously imagined. The structured nature of these activities, as indicated by the reported documentation, raises profound questions about transparency and official oversight. One of the most concerning aspects of this narrative is the apparent absence of these massive currency holdings from any official government financial statements. A review of public budget documents, federal reports, and treasury records reveals no mention of trillions of Iraqi dinars being held as a government asset. This leads to two equally troubling possibilities. The first is that these stockpiles exist but have been deliberately and systematically kept off the books, operating in a financial gray area outside the bounds of normal governmental accounting and oversight. The second possibility is that the story is exaggerated or untrue, which then raises the question of why so much secrecy and anecdotal evidence has built up around these past operations. If the holdings are real and unreported, it signifies a major breakdown in fiscal accountability and transparency. It would mean that significant resources were used and assets were acquired without the knowledge or approval of elected representatives or the public. This lack of disclosure prevents any meaningful debate or oversight regarding the use of taxpayer resources for speculative financial activities. It also raises critical questions about the legal and ethical frameworks that govern such covert programs. The complete omission of these alleged assets from all official financial reporting is a central pillar of the mystery, demanding further investigation and a clear explanation from the relevant authorities. The narrative also suggests that these operations may not have concluded with the withdrawal of U.S. troops from Iraq. Some accounts indicate that the acquisition of Iraqi currency might have continued well into the 2010s, long after the initial period of instability had passed. Furthermore, there is speculation that some of these secure storage facilities may still be active today, holding significant reserves of dinars. This possibility transforms the story from a historical curiosity into a matter of current importance. It raises immediate questions about ongoing oversight, the current status of these assets, and the long-term strategic intentions behind maintaining such holdings for more than 2 decades. If the U.S. government has indeed been engaged in prolonged speculation on a foreign currency without public disclosure, it would represent one of the most significant undisclosed financial operations in recent history. Beyond the legal and financial implications, this situation touches upon the fundamental issue of trust between a government and its citizens. The public has a right to know how its resources are being utilized, especially when it involves complex international financial strategies that carry both risk and potential reward. The continued secrecy surrounding these alleged holdings only fuels speculation and undermines confidence in the transparency of governmental institutions, making a full and open accounting of these activities all the more necessary. To properly evaluate the potential of these alleged stockpiles, one must consider the current exchange rate of the Iraqi dinar. As of today, its value is quite low, with approximately 300 dinars equaling $1. This means that even trillions of dinars, while sounding immense, have a relatively modest present-day value. However, the entire premise of currency speculation is not about present value but future potential. The strategy is a long-term one, predicated on the idea that economic and political stabilization in Iraq could one day lead to a significant strengthening of its currency. Analysts have long debated this possibility, with any potential appreciation depending on a host of factors, including sustained political stability, economic diversification beyond oil, and sound fiscal policy from the Iraqi government. Even a modest increase in the dinar's value could have a dramatic impact on the worth of these alleged stockpiles. If the exchange rate were to improve significantly, trillions of dinars acquired at a very low cost could translate into tens or even hundreds of billions of dollars in profit. If these holdings are indeed government held, these profits would theoretically belong to the American taxpayer. This potential for enormous financial gain is the core driver behind the alleged operation and explains the willingness to hold the assets for such an extended period. The entire endeavor represents a high-stakes financial gamble on the future of a nation, with the potential for an unprecedented return on the initial investment. The story of the hidden dinars naturally extends beyond Iraq, prompting a broader inquiry into the financial practices of governments involved in international affairs. If such a large-scale currency speculation program was implemented for Iraq, it is logical to question whether similar operations could exist for other countries experiencing political and economic turmoil where the United States has had significant involvement. Could there be analogous stockpiles of Venezuelan bolivars, Iranian rials, or other currencies from nations facing instability? This question opens up a much larger conversation about the ethics and legality of national governments engaging in speculative trading on the currency markets, using taxpayer resources and intelligence capabilities to inform their strategies. These concerns highlight a critical need for greater public awareness and robust accountability mechanisms for covert financial operations. The implications of such activities are significant, affecting global currency markets, international relations, and the fundamental trust in governmental transparency. When operations of this nature are conducted without public knowledge or congressional oversight, it creates an environment where financial decisions with massive consequences are made in a vacuum. The story of the Iraqi dinar may be just one piece of a much larger, more complex puzzle involving the intersection of geopolitics, intelligence, and high-stakes international finance, a puzzle that the public is only just beginning to piece together. Examining Iraq's economic trajectory since 2003 provides crucial context for why such a strategy might have been considered viable. In the years following the invasion, the country faced immense challenges, including widespread conflict, political instability, and the monumental task of rebuilding its shattered infrastructure. Despite these formidable obstacles, Iraq gradually made progress. Its oil production, the lifeblood of its economy, steadily increased over the years. New political institutions, while often fragile, were established and began to function. Furthermore, a slow but steady flow of international investment started to enter the country, signaling a growing confidence in its long-term prospects. Each of these developments would have been a positive indicator for the future value of the dinar. If government planners and intelligence analysts anticipated this slow but steady recovery, it would provide a clear strategic rationale for holding trillions of dinars. The operation could be viewed as a unique blend of economic foresight and geopolitical strategy. It would combine on the ground intelligence about the political and security situation with sophisticated financial analysis to create a long-term investment position. From this perspective, the stockpiling of dinars was not just a simple financial bet, but a calculated strategic play, leveraging the full spectrum of a government's informational advantages to position itself for a future economic reality that it was actively helping to shape. This entire narrative is fraught with significant ethical questions that challenge the basic principles of governmental accountability. Using taxpayer resources to speculate on the currency of a foreign nation, especially one where the government is heavily involved militarily and politically, creates a potential conflict of interest. The lack of oversight and public disclosure is a primary concern. Furthermore, if these speculative activities were to yield substantial profits, fundamental questions arise about who would benefit. Would the proceeds be returned to the public treasury, or could they be funneled into other off-the-books programs or benefit the private contractors involved in the operation? Transparency in these matters is essential for maintaining public trust. Hidden financial operations of this alleged scale have the potential to seriously erode public confidence in governmental institutions. Citizens have a right to understand how their money is being used and to know whether their government's actions align with publicly stated national priorities or serve covert financial interests. The story of the hidden dinars brings these ethical dilemmas to the forefront, creating a compelling case for a full and transparent investigation into the matter. Without clarity and accountability, the trust that underpins the relationship between a government and its people is put at considerable risk, with long-lasting consequences for civic engagement and faith in public institutions. For individuals who have chosen to invest in the Iraqi dinar, these revelations, if proven true, introduce a new and profound layer of complexity to their calculations. The currency market is already influenced by a multitude of factors, including economic data, political events, and general market sentiment. The existence of massive, hidden stockpiles held by a major world government would represent a significant hidden market force. The potential release of these reserves onto the market, or even the confirmation of their existence, could have a substantial and unpredictable impact on the dinar's exchange rate. This adds a geopolitical dimension to the investment that most private speculators would never have considered. This situation highlights the intricate ways in which global finance, secret government operations, and individual investment decisions can intersect. Currency traders and long-term holders of the Iraqi dinar are likely monitoring these developments with intense interest, attempting to decipher how these alleged government-held reserves might influence the currency's future trajectory. It serves as a stark reminder that in the world of international currency, the most powerful players may not be visible, and their actions can create undercurrents that affect the entire market. The story underscores the importance of looking beyond the official economic data and considering the hidden geopolitical factors that can shape financial outcomes in unforeseen ways. As this complex and multi-layered story continues to evolve, the need for public awareness and continued scrutiny has never been greater. The narrative of hidden Iraqi dinar stockpiles, secret U.S. storage facilities, and clandestine government programs challenges our conventional understanding of international finance and government accountability. The truth may be emerging slowly, piece by piece, through the efforts of investigative journalists and whistleblowers. However, sustained public attention, persistent questioning, and a demand for scrutiny from oversight bodies are essential to bringing the full picture into the light. The secrets of the past 2 decades may finally be surfacing, offering a unique opportunity to understand what truly happens behind the closed doors of power. It's a call to keep watching, keep questioning, and most importantly, to keep demanding answers.